Now I want to talk about the situation that I saw on Reddit where a dude got an $800,000 inheritance from his grandma and 2 months later decided to pretty much invest the majority of it into Intel stock. Now I'm talking about this article. I'll have it linked down in the description, but TLDR, his grandma died 2 months ago, left $800,000. He's only a junior in college, math major, so he doesn't see the use for the money yet. Nor does he have any debt. He's fortunate enough for his parents to pay for the education. He's always heard about people losing their inheritance and spending it on garbage instead of investing. So he told his parents he's going to be spending, he's not going to be spending a cent. He's going to be investing all of it. They were proud. He put $100,000 in his high yield saving account and $700,000 worth of Intel stock at market open and plan to hold this for a decade and see how it performs. Now, there's a few things going on with this. One, he knows that he could put money in a high yield savings account, so he's not ignorant to the fact that there's a safe way of going about this, and the fact that he did this all within 2 months of getting the inheritance should say something. And probably the worst thing about all of this is that Intel stock's down $10 or around 33%, and this is coming right after he essentially put $700,000 into it, so you could imagine he's down a good few hundred thousand. And all of this has me scratching my head because if you zoom out and look at Intel stock as a whole, I mean literally zoom out probably like 20 years, it hasn't done anything. And I mean, this includes the past 5 years, which you could have just thrown anything at the wall and it had gone up at least 20%. And one of the best things that he could have probably done was invest in an ETF, specifically like VOO or VTI, if he really wanted to be diverse, which if you look in the same past year, it's up 17%. In the past 5 years, it's up nearly 75%. And it just shows that diversification really matters when you're talking about investing, specifically in stocks. And the funny thing about this is that he's in a blessed position. He didn't go out and buy options, which could expire at the end of the week. He put it into an asset, but unfortunately, this asset is a company that hasn't really done anything in the past 30 years. And I think the irony about all of this is that he talks about wasting the inheritance money, which in this case could have been an easy seen as a waste. Realistically, he could have put all of the money in a high yield savings account, which today you're getting like a 4 to a 6% depending on who you're going with. And I'm sure that with this amount of money, people would be easily willing to hold it for him. Now, there are different ways of wasting an inheritance. See, there are a few ways that people are familiar with, right? He could have just bought a few Lamborghinis and the money could have been gone in an instant. But in this case, he was talking about trying to be something responsible with it, which if you take a zoom out and on a case-by-case basis, almost all financial advisors would have suggested that he diversified against a few portfolios. And all in all, the issue isn't really that he invested in Intel stock. If he happened to decide to put, say, $500,000 in a savings account, spend a little bit of money, put the rest in investments, and he maybe had like $10,000 in Intel stock, that wouldn't have been an issue. I think the issue here is that he decided to put almost all of it in Intel stock, which all comes after 2 months of actually getting it. He could have sat on it. He didn't need to immediately lump sum into Intel stock. He could have dollar cost averaged it, over the few quarters. He didn't have to lump sum buy, which I guess on a case-by-case basis, there's different decisions for. But a dollar cost average over the lump sum could have easily prevented a case like this. Because realistically, in the grand scheme of things, 2 months is a blink of an eye. He could have just paused and thought about it. He could have just put it in a high yield savings account and just relaxed for a few weeks. I mean, at least 6 months, and made a right decision. And like I said before, Intel has remained relatively stagnant for a few decades. And I'm not talking about weeks, months, or years, decades, like before Y2K. And there's a few points that he made on Intel where he tried to go down the list. On 2024 Q1, it's up 9% year over year, which, I mean, you could have just zoomed out and see that just because one stat is good doesn't mean all of them are. Intel is heavily investing in its restructuring by building domestic foundries, which, yes, they are heavily building in, I believe, Arizona, New Mexico, somewhere out in the desert, but that's going to take decades for even it to come to fruition. And its Intel 3 is in production, leading edge semiconductors. And the remaining points that he has essentially is positioning itself to be the only American chipset founder, which, yes, in the event anything happens with, China and Taiwan and TSMC, but that's just not a bet to have with your $700,000 inheritance money. And I mean, over the grand scheme of things, he could be completely right. A genius is crazy until they're proven right. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if he actually holds over the decade that he planned. And if you're watching this and happen to get an awesome inheritance, I hope that you do something like 50% in a high yield savings account, pay off your debt, go to a financial advisor, and I promise you they're going to recommend that you diversify into an ETF. Instead of betting big on one company, he could have easily decided to bet big on the entire market. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's his money and he could do exactly what he wants with it. He could waste it. It's just personally, I would have literally put it all in a high yield savings account, getting like 5%, and That equals to around $35,000 a year, and I would just relax off that nest egg money. But you let me know down in the comments what you would have invested the money in, because people are really out here spending $700,000 on Intel stock.